Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wadhwani Viewpoint podcast. My name is Manali Shah and today's conversation is going to be all about startups. Joining us is Ratan Kumar, the founder and CEO of Encamp Adventures. Encamp Adventures offers fun and sustainable travel experiences across the northeast of India. Ratan, welcome to the show and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Manali. Thank you for this opportunity. It feels really great for a Northeastern startup to be speaking to someone at the Wadhwani Foundation. I have been a part of very few such podcasts and really appreciate this opportunity given to us by you.
It's our pleasure. Why don't we start off by you talking a little bit about yourself and Encamp Adventures?
All right. So I am Ratan Kumar. I started in the year 2018, and at Encamp, our vision is to make travel a hassle-free and a carbon-negative activity. And so we are doing this by building a digital travel assistant that helps travelers plan their end-to-end itinerary. And while we do that, the carbon footprint calculator automatically, measures the entire carbon emission, letting them know the environmental impact that their forthcoming journey is going to have. So, along with that, we enable people to also, reduce their environmental impact and, or otherwise, manage it by supporting community-led climate action projects. So overall, it's been more than 3.5 years of our existence since 2019 when we officially registered our company, and we've been hosting people at very close to nature stays, which are mostly camp accommodations, sustainable homestays, which are women owned or run and managed by the community centers. So it's been a great experience hosting more than almost reaching 10,000 people now. So that's been the experience for us in Northeast India.
Okay, that's great to hear, and it's making me want to plan a trip really soon. So before we get into the questions, a huge congratulations to you for raising a funding of 1 crore rupees. That's quite commendable.
Thank you. It was our first, and obviously felt very, it's a very big milestone that we've cracked. So very happy about it. Yes.
Amazing. I'm sure you have a lot to share about your experiences. So let's get to the questions. The first question is that how should startups go about looking for the right investors or looking for investors in general? What's the process? How do they know who to tap and which are the networks?
I feel, before startups, reach out to the investors, it's important to understand which stage of the startup building process they are in, right? Essentially, as the startup is working on a proof of concept, mostly the startup should look for the grants and the other ecosystem support that is available, right? So always going to the ecosystem support and through them reaching out to investors is much much better a process than to individually start shooting cold emails to the investing community or the investors, because each investors also have a lot of portfolio that they take care of. So most of the time, if it's not going through a certain ecosystem support, it might get lost in in the transfer process. Right? So beyond a certain age, at least like 2 years is a very good time by when the company is more formidable, the business model is more tested, it has numbers to back it up in a way that the vision can always be large. The vision should be large and it should be something which should not be very easy to achieve, right? But the business should have undergone certain process which makes the investors community also comfortable to invest, right? When they see the financial cash flow, the projections, everything should kind of tally at a certain point. So I feel that before reaching out to investor, one should do a granular research and try to understand the funding philosophy of each investing house. Each investing house is very, very different and from the other, right? Maybe there are few investors who come in the realm of impact investing. Just a few that comes to
Right.
mind. Havana Capital, or the ones who are focused upon ESG goals, whereas there might be some other ventures, or the investing ventures which are more focused upon the commercial aspect or the scalability potential of a certain technology or a certain business. So understanding an investor's investing philosophy, and then fine tuning it with the startups requirement, or what the startup is working upon, is very important. So I would say first a granular research of these two things has to be done. One is obviously an external research, the other is more of an internal discussion where we try to understand which investors would add the right value to the startup as well, and which investors would probably uh, take in the like would be easy to sort of go forward with in terms of the pitch decks and the presentation
Right.
and the rounds.
Right. So basically, do your research and know who you're approaching. So that's great advice. Similar to this in the same vein, you mentioned that 2 years is a good enough time. So what are the other metrics by which a founder should estimate whether they are ready to pivot from being bootstrapped to getting funded? When is the right time? How would they sort of gauge that?
While it depends upon product to product, right, it depends upon business to business, but oftentimes once you start having a sustainable cash flow, right, more important than anything in the initial phases that I feel for a startup is that even the investing community is not really looking at how much or how big a profit you are making, right? But are you staying unit profitable? If scaled up, can the startup reach profitability at a near term? That thought process is always there, right? So even for a startup, I think a healthy cash flow month on month, a consistency or a consistent growth in the cash flow of the company month on month does give a it does give a sort of an idea that the idea or the product that we're creating is working. And then to scale it up is when an investor can come in, and even the investor is going to invest because of that, right? So
Yeah.
it's necessary that the processes are in place for a startup, that the processes have been figured out, and then when the investing or the investment comes in, then that investment can start giving the desired ROI, right? I also see that many startups feel that raising an investment equals to success for the product, or success for the business model. It's actually not a right thought process.
Right.
Taking the money too early also means that you have to sell out all the equity that of major part of the equity could
Yeah.
go out, and at that point in time, rightly so, because the valuation of the company might not really be so much, because it's still very
Right.
it's just started off, right? So I would say that a startup should start reaching out to the investing community once they are sure about their business potential, and they are backed up with successful numbers in terms of customers, in terms of revenue flow, and that's when they should reach out. The other thing is, if you are innovating something which is capital intensive, and it just cannot come into the market without a certain capital. There are medical devices, there are
Yeah.
in the realm of AR, VR, even the thing that we are working upon. These are very capital intensive, products, right? So maybe for that you might want to, you might need to reach out to the investing community. So preparation again matters out there also. Like you cannot just pitch with an idea only. Some kind of concept or some kind of prototype, right? At least get to the prototype stage and then take it to an investor who can then not only buy the idea, but also have a sneak peek in the prototype, and then connect the dots, right? So
Right.
I think those would be the two most cases of startups funding journey.
Right. It's fair to say that every entrepreneur goes through a certain number of rejections while pitching. So, what can a founder take away from each unsuccessful pitching attempt?
Many a times founders get very possessive, let's call it, about their idea, in the sense that they do not want to take no for an answer, or they find it a little difficult when they are questioned, like when their idea is questioned, or
Right.
put in a little difficult situation, which is done by investors also to see how clear the founder or the startup is about what they are doing. So sometimes people, I've seen startups getting, or founders getting a little defensive, and I think that those kind of mistakes can really hamper, not only on the short term but on the long term also. Even the next
Right.
opportunities through word of mouth might kind of not come up. So uh, apart from that, the pitch, the whole storyline, right? Many times the storyline is a little here and there, and too much too much time in the initial phase is going into like the background story of how the startup began. But if for our investors, we got to value their time as well, and if within the first 15 seconds or first 20-30 seconds what we are doing is not clear to them, then we would have probably lost their interest. So the first, for me, I believe that the first 30 seconds to 1 minute is very crucial to get the investor either hooked to the pitch or lose his attention. So I think valuing the investor's time to sit for the pitch and listening to your ideas is something again which should be practiced. And I think these were the few mistakes. The third thing that I saw a lot of time is when people are asked about the market size and all, then usually there are like the TAM is like $400 billion, and like as startups, as initially we used to not have an idea how to put that number, right? But 400 billion, if we say it's our at total addressable market, I mean it obviously even at the investor level it feels okay, the person might not really have an idea as to how they've arrived at this number. And many times startups are questioned, how have you arrived at this number, right? So the understanding of how to come up to that calculation, those are the works which sometimes I see my fellow founders also missing out on, in the sense like the calculation of how to come to the market size, how to arrive at a market size. So those are areas which a startup should be more clear about.
Right. This is super helpful. I'm sure it will benefit a lot of the young founders that are tuning in, a lot of the aspiring founders that are tuning in. So now let's talk a little bit about strategy. So you are currently working on a calculator for carbon footprint and offset for travelers. It's been an integral part of your strategy and operations since the very beginning. So how did you arrive at the right business model?
So when we started off sustainable camping scene in Northeast India, then we could see the kind of resulting environmental impact that our operations were having, because we were located at a very extremely close to nature. Like for example, just to give a visualization, from river sides to forest areas to the hilltops. So we were kind of hosting people at these places, and when we saw that our hosting was resulting into waste or pollution at those places, then it pushed us into thinking how we could make it zero waste travel experience, or a zero waste alternative accommodation space. So that's how we started initially. And at that point in time, we were very early to think about technology, or think about technology to come in, and how we could improve this with technology, right? So we started from a very basic level, and then when we started doing that, then we learned a lot more of how actually a travel enterprise could have a larger sustainable impact in the geography of its operations, right? Unlike most of the other industries, travel has a huge scope for sustainable impact in the communities that we host the travelers at. So when the pandemic strike, that's when we started our research and development, and started developing the travel carbon footprint calculator. That's when we took, by that time we had understanding on the ground level. Our projects were running at the ground level, community to community, accommodations to accommodations. It takes time, and we were able to do that. We were able to start from 1 2, and then we were extending. So while the physical part was going on strong, then we also had the COVID struck us, and while that stopped the physical effort, but it gave us a lot of time to focus on the R&D and the technical aspect, right? So that's when we got into the entire carbon emission calculation mechanism, how to connect it with the community led climate action. And in that period of the pandemic, we were incubated at AIC SMUTBI, and through the mentorship we got there. It was more than a 6 month long program where we got a mentorship. So through those mentorship we refined the idea, and then ultimately we are able to now, even now we tasted our first MVP, first uh, user launch in a small way, and it has been a very successful test. We are again testing it at Zero Festival in Arunachal Pradesh, where we actually started in 2018. Our test for the business, our test for the travel business was done in 2018 in Zero. And only after the successful test we registered our company. So this test also is happening in Zero this year. It's scheduled for September, month of September. So we're looking at a very getting a user feedback and then taking that into the product, so that we could do the final launch as well. So I think in the entire process of carbon emission calculation, it is the need of the hour, because we come from a place which is the second most biodiverse hotspot in India.
Okay. On a similar note, how should a startup go about doing a need gap analysis while they're working on their business models and plans?
I think it's like we did the two research. One was for the travel product that we were building, the digital assistant. So we did a lot of focused interviews with new people who we haven't hosted yet. We did a focused interview with the guests that we had hosted already. So from past encampers to potential encampers, we were doing a lot of interviews, physical sessions. During the pandemic, we had all the time in the world, but we didn't have the physical connect. But thanks to Zoom and other platforms, we could connect over video calls, and it gave us enough time to do the whole surveys and put the numbers in place. So when we did that, we understood that travelers want to have the power of choice in their hands. Right now, when they go through any website to book a Northeast experience for themselves, they have to either buy a certain package that is already put together out there, does not have the customization possibility, does not take into consideration the interest of the traveler. I mean, the traveler might be interested to stay by the waterfall, but that itinerary or the package might not have that. So they were feeling there was a sense of restriction that I have to buy whatever is there, right? There's no price transparency. I have to go ahead with whatever is, right? So the freedom was not in the traveler's hand, right? When we started with entire customized itineraries, and we started working on WhatsApp. Even before we built the product, even before we started building the product, rather to say, we had already hosted more than 1,500 travelers in Northeast India. And while we develop the product also, we are continuing to work with WhatsApp, and hosted today at this date and hour, we've hosted more than 9,000 people, in excess of 9,000 people through WhatsApp communication. Now, the what has happened is, when we took that WhatsApp data into our digital assistant, and we saw there was a certain pattern, there was a certain visible pattern in the way the user journey should flow, right? So, getting this pattern from an individual's thought process versus observing the pattern through the past data, data always wins, right?
Right.
Because my ideas can always be biased because of my personal nature, but the data is not biased. Data tells you what it is and what you should go forward with. So that way, that is how we came from the interview phases, the market research, focus interviews, to actual customers, actually paying customers, right? So, like Manali has come in, we've conversated over WhatsApp, and Manali has, booked her experience, traveled with us. The entry and the concierge, everything has been done through WhatsApp.
Right.
So there's a lot of data out there.
Okay. And how can founders estimate a market size before they launch a product or service?
I think there are obviously some secondary research available for most of the industries.
Right.
There are reputed market research firms. There are reports from Google and Bain and Co. Right. So extrapolating the current the beachhead market, I think it's more important to know what your beachhead market is first of all, rather than knowing what the global market is. Now, the global market is will look always very big, right?
Right.
But the beachhead market is the actual market that where you are making the where you are earning the initial money, or
Right.
initial customers are coming to you for this market. So understanding the beachhead market first of all, which is my beachhead market, and how much is the size of that, right? What can I do here, and how fast can I cover, say, at least 30% of the market, right? If I can have a 30% market share, then I could be doing this much in revenue, and then extrapolating it with the other market research numbers, and putting it on a global figure helps. Like, for example, how we measure our market size, and we keep it very real in front of investors also. We don't put up very big numbers which is hard to digest, or actually might be true, but it's beyond our scope of beyond our scope of reach at this moment in time. So we keep it very real. On an average, a traveler spends around, on a travel experience, they spend around 15,000 rupees on an average, and mostly they take around 2 to 3 such trips, right? The experiential travel segment, basically the target segment that we cater to, right? And there are like 60 lakh such experiential travelers in India alone, right? So this gives me enough numbers to make my calculations of my market size. So on the beachhead market where I'm operating, even in a year there are almost like, say, 30 lakh travelers traveling, right? 30 lakh travelers coming in, right? Now, out of this 30 lakh, some percentage would be experiential travelers, some would be business travelers. So we take all of that into consideration and put in the numbers, right? So out of 60 lakhs, say if 10 lakhs is our customer and they are traveling in Northeast, and our, say, average product price is, for example, priced at, say, 1500 rupees, right? So that 1500 into the 10 lakhs gives us a certain number, which gives us the 150 crores in the beachhead market of Northeast India, right? So when we are able to explain the market size that way, when we are breaking it with, it should be a sort of a factor of the price of your product,
right,
versus the number of customers for that product in the market, in the region, and the percentage at a certain percentage, right? Usually it's 30% to 40% market share. I mean, even the Tatas and the Adanis are not going to have 100% market share of everything, right? So if we calculate something where the entire market is ours, then we are being very unreasonable with ourselves, right? So I think it's a for the ease of the founders or startups, it should be a factor of the price of your product and the number of customers at a certain percentage of the market share. I think gives you a good idea of the market size. And one more advice, since on the market size topic, it is not what the investor is trying to understand is not if you have the right market numbers in place. the right numbers. There's no right answer to that actually. When someone asks you what is the market size, there's actually no one right answer, right? It's more of the thought process and the way you come to this. How have you arrived at this calculation? Should be the important thing. First for the startups, and also that's how the investors will also be looking at it, because practically there's no right answer, right? Like a Bain and Co would give you another number, BCG might give you another number.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. That's really insightful advice. This is turning into a masterclass of sorts for young founders, and I'm very, very happy. So let's move on to the next topic, which is incubation. Right? So now Encamp Adventures is incubated at AIC SMUTBI. How should a startup go about choosing an incubator? What are the factors that they should consider?
When we connected with AIC SMUTBI, it was from the perspective of getting the kind of valued mentorship. So oftentimes I've seen many startups or founders be more inclined to, will we get funds or not? Right. The end goal cannot be funding, or the end goal cannot be funds, right? So that's the first red flag that one should draw, that don't go to an incubator or a support system looking for funds. Right? Don't go to them just looking for funds. Obviously, the funds is one of the important areas that a startup needs, but not having when a startup or a founder especially is very short-sighted with just focusing on funds. Then what happens is their participation in the entire program is a little sort of not there. Right? Going with AIC SMUTBI, the mentorship, the pool of mentors. Most of the mentors were from out of Northeast. They had their own expertise in certain areas. We got to connect with the likes of the CTO at Make My Trips, Parikshit Chaudhary, if I remember the name, to the likes of from seniors from Let's Venture, right? Giving us ESOP lessons, understanding about ESOP, and connecting, giving us tools as well. I mean, not only mentorship, but also giving us tools like one of the tools of Let's Venture, which is this Trika, how to basically share the ESOP, and which is a very a startup founder at the initial stage does not understand the ESOP implications or the equity cell implications. Right. So those should be those are more valuable thing for a startup founder to understand than just the funds, right? So focusing on the mentorship, being active during the course of the program, being communicative during the course of the sessions, being inquisitive and asking questions with no inhibitions. I mean, no matter how great your product is doing or how bad your product is doing, or how the situation might be for you, taking each session as they come, having participating, talking, connecting with the mentors post the session over LinkedIn, building a recall, the post the session, if the mentor can remember you and connect with you over LinkedIn, it always helps to build the network, right? So the ecosystem or the incubator basically facilitates that session. What we make out of it is like, it's basically our job to, it's basically us who take away from that, right? Correct. So I mean, I've had fantastic sessions at AIC SMUTBI for the program, connected with some of the great marketing heads of Razorpay, Vedanta, and we are connected on LinkedIn now. You get to follow them, get to take suggestions from them with marketing, and many a times they just give you such valuable feedbacks on what you are thinking, and this is the that is what is helping the startups grow basically, right? So focus on the mentorship, focus on the connects, focus on building the network, because in today's network counts. And third is be participative and apply for the opportunities that come your way. I mean, as a startup founder, learn to face no. learn to face rejections. There's no, you don't lose anything. There's actually nothing to lose. There are so many opportunities coming from, say, the Startup India, from the, seed fund scheme, so many schemes, but the startups are not applying for it.
Yeah.
At many places, the startups are not applying for it, and they're not even aware of it. At times, many programs I've seen that the startup founders that I work with, like my colleagues and all, like, they are not aware that such a opportunity has come because they're not following the right places, right?
Right.
So the incubator, I think, even at Wadhwani Foundation and all, the incubator builds a certain thing for you. Now you have to build that sort of what do you call it? You build a certain network where information flows to you, basically.
Right. So
I think those are the things. Just focusing on funds will be a different.
It'll only get you somewhere.
And the thing is that what happens is, I've seen many times startups also wait for the funding to come before building anything on the product. That's a big negative, because I mean, no one's saying that the final product needs to be ready before you come for the incubator. No.
Right.
Even a prototype is okay. Not even a prototype. Even a prototype that works, right? Even that bit, if you can crack, then also you can keep on building from there, slow and steady, right? Like, the MVPs need not be really everything.
Yeah.
So many times I've seen founders are down, waiting for the seed fund scheme to come. Then we will make the product. So that means the most important thing that we are losing out is the time.
Yeah.
Because time to test the product, time to test your idea and get some. That time is most valuable than the funds, actually.
Correct. Right. So you've given an insight into not only the factors to consider while joining an incubator, but also how to get the maximum value out of your incubation duration. So that's great. You've given an added aspect to what we were discussing. So now let's talk about networks and partnerships. Right? Encamp Adventures works with a number of camp partners in an attempt to standardize the travel experience that you offer. Now, how should a startup go about creating a very solid network of partners?
So I think it all starts from a very simple yet fundamental exercise, which is called the stakeholder mapping. Right?
Mm-hmm.
In the entire gamut of the travel industry, for us, it might be different for others. In the entire gamut of the industries that we are working on, there are multiple stakeholders involved. So we got to map the stakeholders. Who is connecting to which stakeholder, right? Once we do the stakeholder mapping, then we know whose motivations are what, who can add what value at which funnel or at which level, right? Like, for example, in a very simplified, alternative accommodation space, there's a local who has a great, experience of the place, knowledge of the place, is, sustainably, living, right? Now, he does not have the marketing expertise, or he does not have the infrastructure or the funds to lay out that infrastructure, right? So his positives are some, negatives are some, right? Then there is a company like, for example, Encamp, which is wanting to host travelers at these offbeat locations, or take them to these offbeat locations. So he connects with them. Right? There are local guides which facilitate the other experiences. So we pull them together in the stakeholders. Then there is a marketing. Then we market it. But on the other side, there are other companies which want to also host at such locations, which are based out in, say, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, all kind of places, right?
Yeah.
So there are these stakeholders at each levels, right? So connecting those stakeholders so that each one in the value chain is benefited. It should be a sort of a win-win situation for each one. If we can achieve that sort of a balance, then the flow of business becomes driven from all sides. So there are customers who come to you directly. Then there are B2B companies which come to you who want to host their guests with you. So when they come to us, then we take it to our local partners whom we facilitate it with infrastructure and the marketing and the sort of the sustainable practices, training. So those things, so, like those are the stakeholders that need to be coming together, right? But one thing we've learned is working with local communities, right, is more very, it's very, uh, the detail is in establishing a trust and keeping that trust, supporting them, and not from, not with an intention of, just exploiting their resources for your business, right? So that is very, very important when you're working with the kind of partners that we are working with at the very local community level,
Right.
because they are, at many times they are very gullible to exploitations in the terms of business interest, right? So
Right.
keeping your interest intact and doing business drives a purposeful business. So today these stakeholders are the people on the ground which are taking forward our efforts around environmental
True.
projects and conservation projects as well. So that's how I think the whole stakeholder mapping will help each startup figure out their value chain.
Right, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you are based in Guwahati, where the startup ecosystem is still fledgling. What would you say are the advantages or disadvantages of being located in a place where the ecosystem is still emerging?
I think I'll talk about the advantages first, because being in Northeast India is often considered as a negative sort of, many of us or many of our friends in the startup ecosystem are, even now, victims of their own thought process that we are from Northeast, so we cannot build technologies, or we are from Northeast, so we cannot do that. We don't have this resource, or we don't have that resource. We don't have the network like Bangalore does, or the technology that Hyderabad has, right? So that kind of comparison sort of leads to less people trying to innovate very technical products, right? But those who do have an advantage because there are very few people doing it, right? So when you are doing it, then you sort of differentiate. You become a sort of a little differentiated, right? So
Right.
that's how I will say a disadvantage turns into an advantage if you are able to execute and build something which is innovative. The second thing about the advantage is the fact that it's emerging means that there's also a lot of support coming in for the Northeast region. Like for example, if you look at the startup India platform, there are many programs which are targeted towards Northeastern region and Northeastern startups, women from Northeastern region, or social impact startups in Northeastern region, right? Many programs keep on coming, right? So those are focused upon the Northeastern startups, so the competition becomes a little easier, right? While in the initial phase, so you're competing within your community of startups, and you sort of have a better chance of qualifying to a certain round, or qualifying as a
Right.
success, right?
Right.
In comparison to if it was all the same, a startup from here being competing with someone in Bangalore who has more
Correct.
the times and resources, then it will not be very easy.
Yeah.
So being Northeast region, that is a thing. I'll quote one example also, which I think should make sense to other starters. When we apply for the National Startup Awards, which Startup India has year on year, there are a few questions and there are a few things that are you which takes into consideration. If you are a social impact organization, you have a plus point there. If you
Right.
are a northeastern region, or a startup which is working in the northeastern region or promoting northeastern region, right? So then there is a support, there is a plus point for you, right? So those are again advantages, right? uh,
Right.
uh, Even on the marketing assistance, you would be not aware maybe for the travel and tourism, but organizations which are working for the promotion of travel and tourism in the northeast and Jammu and Kashmir, uh, at a certain scale, not like very national, but at a certain scale, there are criterias, but they do receive marketing assistance from the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. So if you see, being from northeastern region or being from Guwahati, which is one of the commercial hubs of northeast region, these are the advantages, that there
Right.
are support for the region. So you need to kind
Right.
of be there in front and apply for it, right? No one can apply for that. Apply that for you.
Yeah.
You have yourself. The uh, disadvantage again is that the amount of time it takes for a product to be built and churned out and taken into the market in, say, in a place like Bangalore and Delhi, that is a little more here.
Mhm.
One, because of the dearth of technical resource.
Right.
The good qualified ones are working for the likes of Googles and Facebooks in Gurgaon and Hyderabad and Bangalore, here and there, right? There's a technical dearth out here. And the second option is that since now it's a virtual world, so why not get resources from outside? So at an outsourced team level, what happens is the deliveries are and the timelines are haywire. Sometimes there are situations where the products are not delivered as communicated. There are conflicts. So such kind of things delay the entire process and lead to loss of hard earned revenue, business revenue, right, in the product. So I think technically we see there's a certain disadvantage, right? Apart from that, now the ecosystem is thriving, in the sense, even in Northeast India, sorry, even in Northeast India, the startup ecosystem is thriving now. Very recently, the startup ecosystem at Meghalaya, at Assam, the ecosystem at AIC, SMUTBI, there are some major things happening out here which are very big, right? And just to sum it up, even though we are from Guwahati, we are, through AIC, SMUTBI's, support and mentorship, we've got an opportunity to pitch our product to Marico Innovation Fund, right? That's
Oh.
so big. We've got opportunities to pitch at SAP Ariba. We got selected, we got supported and mentored by CIIE, Ahmedabad, right? Uh, this was also from through AIC support and
Okay.
the HDFC Bank, UNDP. There's so much support that we are getting today. So practically, it's a virtual world. So
Yeah.
nothing is so limiting more than
Right.
the victim mindset. I believe that we need to change for Northeast region. The first and the most important aspect is changing that victim mindset and making people believe that you can innovate from here and for the world, not only for Northeast region, right?
Yeah.
Many times startups have this thought process that we don't have so many customers. So basically, they're building the product, keeping the local market only in
Right.
mind, right?
Right. Right.
That way, obviously, the market size looks big, the adoption looks low, small. The population, major part of the population is probably not well connected on the internet, or the network connectivity issues are there. So it does not plan out. But if you look at the broader vision, if you look at building something which could become a global product or a pan India product, then the whole product development aspect only changes, right? So I think that mindset change is the first thing that we in Northeast India need. And if we change that mindset, then I think there's a lot to achieve from here.
Okay, that's a very balanced perspective, and I really like how you took the disadvantages and turned them into advantages. We see more and more of startups as well as incubation centers coming out of the Northeast. So I hope the ecosystem only continues to evolve and strengthen.
I'm also mentoring a few of the incoming female founders in the city of Guwahati. So this is just taking them through the journey of how to kind of go into the ecosystem and get their startups out there, right? So in case I can be of help to any startups,
Oh, yeah.
then I can drop my email ID and contact details with you. I'll be more than happy to share my learnings. and in the process get to learn about what they are working upon. It would be exciting to help each other and grow from here.
And lastly, what's new at Encamp Adventures? What are you working on?
Apart from the itinerary building tool that we've already discussed, we are working on the AR VR aspect. So where the focus is on how the AR tools or the VR tool that we are enabling could become a tool of sustainable tourism in Northeast India, right? So there's an upcoming program of AIC SMUTBI where their Meta and the Meaty Hub is supporting startups in this space. So we are working on the first of all, our priority is the VR technology. So once we crack that, then we would be also extending it to the augmented reality. So that's what is going on new. It's still in the R&D phase, but very excited to share about it, and very soon you would get to see something probably.
Amazing. I look forward to it. With that, we come to an end of this episode of the Wadhwani Viewpoint podcast with Ratan Kumar, the founder and CEO of Encamp Adventures. We've spoken about fundraising, business models, incubation, networks and partnerships, and the ecosystem in Northeast India. Thanks again for tuning in. My name is Manali Shah, and I'll see you in the next one.